So we know that WCW goes down, and we know, and we've talked about this actually, that you booked Sting for the first anniversary event of TNA. It goes down on June 18th, 2003. It would have been his first match here in the United States since the final edition of Nitro more than 2 years prior. He's going to team with the top TNA babyface at the time and the former NWA champion, Jeff Jarrett, against AJ Styles and a mystery partner who winds up being Sean Waltman. Now, we talked a lot about this in the archives. Be sure to check that out at myworldonyoutube.com. But you said on that show, if memory serves, old Stinger always had a soft spot for your dad. Is that the way you remember it?
Going into the anniversary, the real short story is, and like you can get the complete story on all of our archives, but we wanted something big, and going to the Carters and like, hey, here's the idea. Don't even know if we can get him, but kind of a 1-year anniversary, a really big deal, and they were for it. And so talked to my dad, and my dad said, give it a shot, son. Give him a call. And as we get on the call, the niceties are out of the way, and how's life treating you? And hey, Jeff, how's your dad? Look, good. He's actually involved in this project, and oh, that's good. And hey, we want to talk about you, possibility, come making a shot. And as I told the story, Sting just one shot. This is no guarantee. That intrigued him, but the number one thing that intrigued him was he has always kind of looked and it told my father that, had it not been for Jerry Jarrett, where would his career have gone? And my dad always leans into cream always rises to the top. If you're good, you're going to succeed, period. There's not any one person that makes or breaks a guy's career. But Sting always had a soft spot or a respect spot. He's like, yeah, he didn't come cheap, so it was a payday for him, but it intrigued him. And I think he could kind of hear in my voice that we're a young upstart company, but you would be a huge shot in the arm for us. I think as a talent, that makes you feel good that, hey, I'm actually bigger than the brand. Let me help these guys out. And that was exactly the case.
We know that it goes well, and you had actually spent some time with him working on those McManus WWA shows, and we finally get an idea that we're going to get Sting back. Meltzer would write, in the headline match of October 29th, 2003 TNA pay-per-view, Jeff Jarrett defeated Hacksaw Jim Duggan to retain the NWA World title. Duggan was a surprise opponent introduced by Jimmy Hart, who's portrayed as a babyface manager trying to get revenge against Jarrett for attacking him and Hulk Hogan in Japan. And the show closed strong, with Jimmy announcing next week he's bringing a new opponent to challenge Jarrett for the NWA title, Sting. It'll be Sting's first singles match for TNA and only his second in-ring wrestling appearance. Boy, what a transition. From June to now October, he's coming back, not in a tag, but in a singles. And boy, Jimmy Hart stepped up the competition. No disrespect to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Sting's a big damn deal. How'd you get him to come back the second time here?
Well, and I was just sitting there, and you kind of referenced the McManus tours. When you kind of look at mine and Sting's career, obviously our working relationship started in WCW and the ins and outs, and we had a rhythm. And Andrew McManus, you fly from, Sting at that time, I believe, was California, but I'm in Nashville. You fly from here to Auckland, New Zealand for one match, and then you get there, and I was elated. I knew obviously before I left that I was getting to work with Sting over there. So we had, I thought we had a really good match in New Zealand. And then you fast forward to the first match in TNA in the tag match. And then he had a taste of it. And so I think the comfort level was beginning to come back, if you will. And, I think him and Dixie hit it off from day one. And so my father, I think Sting kind of had, maybe for the lack of a better word, maybe by this time, maybe a little itch in the industry. And at this point, we were scratching it for him to get him to come back, because I think we brought him back and had maybe a 4-show deal. Oh man, but it was come back and we're going to do a couple of shows, I think was kind of the term.
After the match, it's Sting does a promo and says he'll come back the following week. That match ended in a DQ because you used a chair on Sting. But afterwards, he grabs the stick and says, I'll come back next week, but only if AJ Styles would team with me. He had just turned babyface, so he accepts. And Jarrett says, great. My tag team partner will be Lex Luger. How fun is that?
Yeah.
Lex Luger and Sting in TNA.
And in the early years, and look, it's documented, and our man Lex is a part of the ad-free family. Sting has they became friends in the late 80s. They were business partners. The Main Event, you hear Sting when he first started, he was, into bodybuilding and the gym business. And then for years in Atlanta, him and Lex were business partners, through Lex's motorcycle accident and the ups and downs. And again, they were business partners outside of wrestling. And Lex had a tough time. And so Sting was incentivized on one aspect. Hey man, why don't we get Lex in here for a match? And I think he understood kind of he knew AJ by this time. And so there was a comfort zone, me, Lex, Sting, and AJ. So it kind of worked out that way.
It's a pretty cool deal. We know eventually there becomes lots of buzz that you guys might be working on a television deal with WGN, and Sting being a part of the roster would go a long way there. Meltzer would say you wouldn't even have to be a full-time wrestler, but clearly you start to get a little more buy-in for Sting to the point where he sits down with Mike Tenay and does an interview promoting his movie, Sting, The Moment of Truth. And he's going to return to TNA for quote unquote one night only as a special guest enforcer for the main event, which is a 4-way between AJ Styles, Abyss, Raven, and Ron Killings. Raven wins. And this is actually his last appearance in TNA for almost 2 years. Now, I know he was back here to promote the movie about his life and turning his life over to God, and how he turned his life around and all that stuff. But why is he gone for 2 years? JR would tell us over on his show, Grilling JR, in wrestling, it always comes down to the 2 C's, cash and creative. Is that what this was about? You needed a little more cash to be able to afford the Stinger?
Be the first one, cash. Yeah. We were in that process of Fox Sports Net and or a little but yes, it was a cash flow situation that our international, I don't want to miss this, that when we had him on 6-8 episodes and we were building the library, but when Jimmy Hart and kind of the flirting and those in the archives as well of Hulk Hogan on the show, not on the show. But when we had basically a who's who from Road Warriors and Kurt Hennig and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Rick Steiner, and I mean, you kind of, the former ECW guys, when you kind of start building that library of a who's who, and you are out in the international market and you have all these names that are familiar, and we had Sting probably at this time, maybe 6-8 episodes. So it gave us some bandwidth in international markets that, oh, this guy's on this episode. So again, we were about building that library, which was super important for us to start getting the international sales. Sting was a part of it. But at this time, we couldn't afford him on a weekly basis, but we certainly wanted him. Since he really became a part of it, we always wanted him. And that obviously we're about to get to. We got him to come on full time.